So Christine already has said a little bit, okay, what we at WHH are doing. So our vision is really that all people in the world can exercise their right to a self-determined life in dignity and justice, free from hunger and poverty. So our main goal and objective is to fight hunger and malnutrition by 2030. Currently, we are working in 36 countries. We are non-denominational and politically independent. Yeah, so we are fighting hunger through really trying a holistic, right-based approach, both in emergency aid or relief and also long-term development. We are working strongly together with local partners on site. And yeah, since 1962, we have supported more than 12,000 projects in more than 72 countries with even more than 5.07 billion euros invested. And for example, in 2023, we have reached to 16.4 million people. So we are working really in a diversity of countries and also diverse sectors. Most all it's nutrition, but we're also working in the wash sector, agricultural sector, focusing more on climate change and awareness, but of course, and economic development, but of course also in our sector called skills development, where we say, okay, education and employment is one of our key pillars when it comes to reduce poverty and with that also hunger. We are working by supporting the young people, providing skills development offers, enabling to access employment, and with that income, and that leads hopefully then to personal and community growth. Our flagship program, Skill Up, was already mentioned, the program I'm also coordinating. And Skill Up is now in 15 countries. We started in 2015, so the program also turns 10 this year. And since this 2015, the program has supported more than 25,000 young people and getting skills and also access to employment and self-employment. Yeah, already said, we are offering non-formative ed, also here trying to follow a really comprehensive and holistic approach. I can tell you a little bit later when I bring up some examples how we are doing that. How is this contributing to zero hunger in our main mission? We really look into the needs-based skills development, and that will then lead to adequate employment. And together with that, with the technical skills, we're also looking into competencies on healthy food choices so that also the consumption habits can improve. Yeah, and linked to our work, of course, we see that education and technical vocational education and training is a basis for a self-determined and self-dependent life and allows social participation. This just quickly on us and how our topic is linked to, our work is linked to skills development. Before we are now really diving into the keynote speech and diving into what is now actually non-formative ed, how does it look like, how is it what we in WHH are doing, we have prepared a little icebreaker question, and I would like us to Salvatore to share it.
It's now starting and should be popping up for all of you.
Yeah, and the question is, what comes to your mind when you hear non-formative ed? So you can enter a word in the best case, and hopefully we also see later if your words and your connection you're doing with non-formative pops up later in the keynote speech or in our discussion. So you just enter a word and you click on submit, and we should see a nice word cloud.
Les rapports de l'UNESCO ou faire des choses qui sortent de... Mais c'est ça qu'on avait dit, non?
Yeah, and maybe Salvatore, from your end, you can share your screen. So then we can also see maybe what comes up in the word cloud so that we can see some words.
So you should see my screen now. And you see in the right part here on the side coming words like YouTube tutorials, systemized training, low quality, marginalized people, short course, YouTube tutorials, practical skills, of course, hand-on skills, a gender gap, knowledge transmission, more of a formal assessment. And as you can see in the word cloud, big words are, of course, learning, skills, and short course, hands-on skills, lifelong learning currently, but most of all learning, short course, and skills.
Yeah, that looks good. I would say there are already many words there, which will also now pop up in our presentation and our discussion. So let me share my screen again. And I want to start with a little, let's say, role play, or let's dive into the reality of the people we are working with in the countries. Let's imagine we have Fatima. She is 22 years old and she lives in the peri-urban area in Mali. She left school at 14. What she's doing right now, she manages households and caregiving responsibilities. She's interested in food processing and she wants to start a small home-based business and maybe to open her own snack shop. And for that, she wants to learn, say, food handling, packaging, and how to also sell her products. But for that, she needs a flexible local training that fits her daily reality. Or let's take Daniel. He's 23 and he lives in the rural Uganda. He left school at 16. Right now, he is helping on his family farm, but he's really interested in modern farming techniques. He also dreams of starting his own poultry or horticulture business, but also he is lacking access to training, capital, and also guidance on how to do that. So now Fatima and Daniel are not exceptions, and the questions are, what kind of training would reach Fatima where she is and help her to take the next steps? Also, what kind of skills and support would help Daniel transition from the subsistence farming he's doing right now with his family to sustainable self-employment? And of course, what types of skills and support do they need and how can they access them given their circumstances? And this, of course, leads us to non-formal TVET, where this approach might facilitate this access and focus especially on the needs of people like Fatima and Daniel. So, but let's start with some more concepts behind the different learning pathways we are talking today about. So usually when we think about education or TVET, we think about the formal education. And the formal education is actually the learning which is strictly provided by an education or training institution. It's a structured way of learning, saying according to the didactic of objectives, the duration, and it's leading to a certification. If the formal TVET also refers to technical and professional programs which are offered by the formal education system within the country. Formal learning is intentional from the perspective of the learner. But we also have the informal education, or let's call it better, the informal learning. And informal learning instead is that what we know is learning that occurs in daily life. in the family, in the workplace, in communities, and through interests and activities of individuals. Meaning, I'm sitting together with my parents, they tell me something. I'm sitting together with friends, they show me how they do a certain thing. So that means that this kind of informal learning is referred to experiential or incidental random learning. It's not like the formal education. It's not intentional from the perspective of the learner. Okay, and now in this sphere, what is non-formal education and non-formal TVET? And it's actually not a mix, but it's closer to formal education. So this non-formal learning is learning that it's not obligatory provided by an educational or training institution, but and it also not always lead to a certification, but it's always a learning which is in a structured way. Means also again in terms of didactic objectives, the duration. There's a training manual or curriculum behind it. And non-formal education is also intentional from the perspective of the learner. So the learner is entering non-formal with the intention to learn something specific. In many cases, non-formal education is taking place in an organization or institution, but it's not a must. The UNESCO is defining non-formal education. I find this definition really helpful because it really summarizes all the different elements when it comes to non-formal. So non-formal education is education that is institutionalized, intentional, and planned by an education provider. It's an addition, alternative, and or also a complement to formal education. And it's often provided to guarantee the right of access to education for all. So even that, before we said, okay, non-formal, that it's not always maybe in a really organizational setting. Most of the times it's really appearing like that. So this is a definition, and that's why it's also really important to distinguish between informal and non-formal education, because this is often mixed, but it's not, because informal, it's really not intentional, and it's really what happens in the daily life, and it's without a curriculum, it's without a training manual, and it's not structured. Okay, now so we have that now hopefully clarified. But why is non-formal TVET so important? We had our example with Daniel and Fatima, but let us look a little bit more on other reasons. So formal education sometimes can exclude people, especially young people who, for example, have dropped out of school or have never enrolled school. Also, Fatima and Daniel, they left school quite early. So non-formal education can provide this access to school dropouts or underdeserved groups. In general, in many countries, also we as WHH, we are working, there's a general lack of training opportunities provided by the formal structures. And that's why non-formal TVET is a really important supplement to formal TVET in these countries. They're really filling a gap. We also know, and that's also a topic of this BarCamps, that the informal economy is a reality for many people we are working with in the countries. And the non-formal TVET or the non-formal education offers, they're sometimes even better aligned with the needs of this informal sector. What kind of skills and competencies are needed? Also because of the way it's more flexible and can adapt sometimes even quicker to changing realities also in the non-formal sector. We also say that's a key pathway for lifelong learning. Someone already mentioned that also in our workload at the beginning, right? So lifelong learning never stops. And especially when we are talking here with TVET of adult education. So non-formal TVET is also promoting and supporting that lifelong learning and helps individuals, for example, also to re-enter the labor market or to change careers at any age. And in the end, then it helps for income generation and entrepreneurship as well. And the last point is that due to the different accessibility aspects of non-formal TVET and the flexible modalities, non-formal TVET can promote also gender equality by being more accessible to women, especially also those with family responsibilities, and by also empowering them in the non-traditional occupations, so to really encourage them to take up professions which are more income generating and maybe not as traditionally women led. So yeah, this on some advantages also. But I come back to the advantages a little bit later. So some examples, and these examples are also really coming from our own experience as organization working in the field of mainly non-formal TVET. So non-formal TVET, and I think that was also mentioned already in the work cloud, there's a possibility to really have a module and competency-based curricula which is tailored to the learner's needs with a flexible schedule. For example, in our work, we look, okay, when are the farming seasons? When are the participants available? Maybe in the morning hours, on the afternoon hours? What other kind of responsibilities do they have? For example, caregiving. Or do they, for example, have to continue work because they need the money? And so to really adjust the training to a module and flexible schedule is one way you can use non-formal TVET for. Short-term courses, that was mentioned also in the word cloud. So usually a non-formal TVET is not a long training. Usually it's coming from 3 to 6 months. And it's also reason because that's more based on the needs and circumstances of the participants. They don't have time to attend a training which takes 1, 2, or 3 years. Yeah, because of the flexibility non-formal TVET offers, other modalities are that on the job training. So we are here at the DC DVET. So yeah, dual training approaches are also possible under non-formal TVET. Our colleague Benjamin, who's here today and who also will lead with us the breakout group later. They, for example, in Uganda, they have a really great approach on how to use non-formal TVET and to have a dual approach with the really on-the-job training and practical training in enterprises. Also within WHH, we offer mobile trainings, again, looking into what are the communities needing. And sometimes the training locations, also the formal ones, are really far and it's expensive or hard to reach areas for the participants. So we are also offering mobile trainings, or we also call it outreach trainings in remote areas, where the facilitators, the trainers are going to the villages, offering the training on the site. Sometimes training can also be integrated into income-generating projects or cooperatives. So working in Sierra Leone, for example, in our case, means that we are working directly with some cooperatives, let's say for fishery, and they decide, okay, we need like 5 people here to get trained on certain marketing skills or how to improve our fishery products. And yeah, and then they can directly translate it into income generating activities because they're already working in that field. Yeah, and then another modality is of course to combine formal and non-formal training offers. Meaning, for example, you have the formal training offers, but you add some courses, like for example, for life skills or business skills. We at WHH, we really believe in the strong impact life skills have also on the employability of the young people after they graduated. Or what we also do a lot is that the training itself is non-formal, but the certification later is done by formal entities. So you can really have a mixed approach as well when it comes to non-formal. Now, quickly, I already talked a lot about the advantages, but here again on one slide. So as mentioned, one big advantage are the low entry requirements, which makes it really accessible for a lot of people, and also in the fields we as WHH are working to access training. The courses can also be quickly adapted, can be looked, okay, what are the labor market needs right now? What are the skills needs of specific trades? And with a good approach, you can tailor these curricula also to local economic opportunities and new emerging sectors. We have some approaches with good labor market assessments or joint comprehensive processes to develop these training manuals or curriculums. The possibility is there to combine not just the technical competencies, but also business and life skills in the training to support both the self-employment, but also the employability or employment-based employment in general. Another advantage we see, which comes together with non-formal TVET, is that we are just focusing, usually in the training, we are focusing on one individual, but in the end, with that, non-formal TVET can promote community development by delivering training locally and building collective skills. So as I said, for example, the community decides, okay, who is taking part in the training, and then those people who participated in the training, they can spread the knowledge, they can work as multipliers, and with that, the whole community has a chance to further develop. And then as a last advantage, it can also promote social inclusion by recognizing, for example, prior learning, to be flexible, bringing in different people and their knowledge. Here later also I found really great example from Nepal, or they're also looking into this, recognizing prior learning. Yeah, so these are some advantages on one slide. But of course, we have to be honest, they are not just advantages, there are also some challenges when it comes to non-formal TVET. And non-formal TVET is, of course, not always officially recognized by national authorities. And that, of course, for example, when we just can hand out a certificate by WHH or by the local partner organizations who are actually implementing the project, the certificate has less value, especially by employers who want to employ someone. So it's really important to work on the recognition of the training, of the certificates and the curriculums to give it a higher value. There also are limited pathways into formal systems. So if you have, let's say, just a non-formal education so far, it might be difficult to transition to a formal education offer, especially when your non-formal certificate is not recognized and you cannot work with that. We also see that there's a fragmented implementation and coordination between all the actors involved in non-formal TVET. So we cannot ensure that the quality is everywhere the same and it's a high quality. Sometimes it's poorly integrated with national strategy or the labor market needs, because there are no standards behind. Everyone who is offering non-formal TVET does it on their own way. So there is no big guarantee for all the non-formal offers there that they have a high quality. There's a big challenge with sustainability. As the organizations who are conducting non-formal TVET often do not receive government support in form of money. So they really rely on external funding, and as soon as the project, for example, ends, the funds are over. So non-formal TVET has to look a lot into sustainability aspects and how to survive over a specific project period. And then, I think it's in general a problem for vocational education, that university degrees are always considered as a higher education, but with non-formal TVET it's even worse, that it has a really low social prestige. Non-formal TVET is for the losers, for the school dropouts, and just those who don't have another option, they do that. And they're really often seen as a second-class education. This again also then has an impact on employers who maybe are more discouraged to employ someone with a non-formal certification. So it's really important to also work on that recognition, but also especially the awareness and recognition within the communities on all the quality also non-formal TVET can provide. I'm coming to my last slide, and I hope I'm not talking too long. So on the last slide, okay, we have these challenges. So what can work and what are solutions and good practices? And here when I work into some, talking about some good practices, many of those are coming from our own experience as organization, because that's also another challenge. There's not really much reliable data on non-formal TVET. So there are some studies out there, but still we cannot also, even with us, we're just starting to really get a good impact analysis, but we don't have a lot of data showing the impact of non-formal TVET. But here, that's the points I'm presenting as some promising practices. I already mentioned the mobile and work-based training. So I don't want to talk too much about our example in Uganda, but that's exactly something we are trying to make the training as practical as possible, as close to the reality of the informal sector or the working sector for the young people. So really to go where the people live and work and to really improve their access for the hard-to-reach groups. Also in Sierra Leone, as an example, they have, or Tajikistan, I think I also seen one colleague from our organization from Tajikistan. That's really hard to reach locations in the mountain areas. Yeah, so really bring the training where the people are. I talked about the curricula and how important it is also to have a certain standardization there, that it really helps to co-create these new curricula together with the authorities and stakeholders, be it from the governmental side or the private sector, and also to boost then the national alignment. We have developed a guidance for writing workshop, how these co-creation process can look like and how to develop these kind of curricula together. I mentioned the blending non-formal and formative, that's a big asset. So if there's a possibility to bring in life skill or business skill training, it can have a big impact when it comes to employability of the young participants. And also the way we have quite often is, for example, that we started in Burundi. That was really, in Burundi, we just started with the formal training, but then we thought, okay, let's merge in some other trainings, formal and business skills, and it's worked really well, and the employability of the young people is increasing. But also to say, okay, there is a lack by the government to offer enough formal training, so we are filling the gap with offering non-formal training, but the assessment later is done from governmental side. So the recognition is already there, but we can use all the advantages of the non-formative with the flexibility, the modular schedule, and all these kind of things to respond to the needs of the people. But then the assessment is done by the government, so all is recognized. That's that's from our point of view, a really good modality and a good practice. Partnership with government and private sector, of course, also helps to increase recognition and legitimacy. Yeah, so for example, we conduct a lot of joint trade fairs. We have policy development in Sierra Leone, for example. Our project, our colleagues and our local partner organization, they develop together with the government policy on non-formative, really not on formative, but on non-formative. How can it look like to ensure a certain standardization and quality, but still to stay with the benefits of non-formative. So this was a really good practice we could experience in Sierra Leone. Yeah, engage local trainers, not just because then you can respond again to the needs, local languages, but it builds ownership, and you can even then again have this multiplier effect on the community. In some cases, our graduates, they become trainers, or business owners become trainers. Sometimes the trainers, they form own businesses to also offer them the training to other people in the community to really have this multiplier effect. And then, yeah, innovative, locally adapted models can inspire even education reforms on governmental level. So our Skill Up program, we are trying to do that. We have a quite comprehensive approach with quality standards and guiding principles, and we are really in close exchange always also with the governments to try to showcase our learnings, our experiences, and also based on our quality standards, where we think these are important elements to consider when it comes to vocational education and training with vulnerable young people, especially. Yeah, I could now talk hours about the Skill Up program, which I will not do. but I'm happy to bring in some further examples later on of our program. And that's it for now for the keynote speech.
Thank you.
I hope I stayed in the time and we still have some time for questions.